Hey everybody, I'm Josh Jackson from WPSculptor.com. Thank you so much for joining me. In this step-by-step video tutorial, I'll be walking you through how to create a fantastic website with WordPress using an incredible free theme called Zarif. Zarif is currently one of the most downloaded WordPress themes, and rightfully so. It is very professional looking and probably the easiest theme I've ever used to make a website. This tutorial is comprehensive so that everyone, including absolute beginners, can easily follow along. If you find the video helpful, please like the video on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, and add the video as a favorite. These things really help me out. Also, feel free to leave any questions you might have in the comments section, and I'll be happy to answer those. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy it. In just a moment, we'll look at the exact website I'm going to show you how to create, but first we'll start with a bullet list. The following step-by-step video tutorial will include setting up a domain name and hosting account with HostGator.com, getting your first month of web hosting for just 1 cent, installing WordPress onto your hosting account, downloading and installing the free version of the mobile-friendly Zarif theme, specifying which page you want to be your home page, setting up the big title section with custom text and a background image, setting up the Our Focus section with graphics and text about the different attributes of your business or brand, setting up the Our Team section to showcase your key employees, utilizing the Testimonial section to showcase your satisfied customers, setting up a contact form, finding free high-quality stock photos and icons to use on your website, resizing photos and icons to fit perfectly on your site and remain high quality, using widgets and widget areas to add content to your front page sections and sidebar, adding contact information and social media links to your website footer, creating pages and adding content to your pages using the visual editor, creating a custom logo using free online resources, creating a custom navigation menu with drop-down functionality, using section IDs to link to the different sections of your homepage, basic WordPress settings, and more. Alright, this is the exact website I'm going to show you how to create step by step without skipping any steps, and you can see that it's an incredibly professional website with lots of amazing features. I'm using a made-up travel agency as the content subject for this tutorial, but of course you'll be able to replace all of the text and images with your own content. Also, each one of these sections that you see here is completely optional, and you don't have to utilize all of them if you don't need to. And I do want to point out that this site is mobile friendly, so just to show you that real quick, I'll resize my browser window. And you can see that the site will resize nicely on mobile devices, and at the top here we also have this nice mobile menu. Alright, I'll resize my browser window back the way that it was. Okay, and then the first thing we're going to do is set up a domain name and hosting account with a company called HostGator.com. And if you have your domain name already set up with another company, you can still set up your hosting account with HostGator. Now, my domain name is actually quickwebsitecreation.com, but because I don't want to have to purchase a new domain name every time I make a new video tutorial, I'm going to use a subdomain, which is travel.quickwebsitecreation.com. But of course, you'll be able to set up your own domain name. And then after we set up a hosting account, we will install WordPress, and we're going to download and install the free version of the Zarif theme that you see here. And I'm going to show you how to design a custom logo with the different colored text using free online resources. And we'll also be setting up a custom navigation menu with drop-down functionality like you see here. And you can have as many different drop-down menu items as you want. I only have one, but you can have as many as you want here. And with the Zarif theme, the front page is designed with what are called section IDs that allow us to link to specific sections on our front page. So I can click on each of these menu items to be taken to specific parts of my front page. And I'll demonstrate here. I'll click on the About Us menu item. And you can see that that takes us to the About Us section of our front page. And I'll just show you one more time. I'll click on the Testimonial menu item, and that's going to take me to the testimonial section on my front page. Alright, let's scroll up, and I'll show you how to set up this big title section that you see here with your own text, and you can have any background image that you want. I use an amazing free high-quality stock photo resource for all of my images, and I'll show you that resource, but you can definitely use your own images if you want to. I'll also show you how to set up these optional buttons, and these buttons can link to anywhere you want. And just to show you, I've got my Our Services button linked to the Services section on my front page. So I can click on that, and you can see it takes me there. And then I'm going to show you how to set up this section here, which is a great place to feature certain aspects of your business or your brand. And you can have an icon or a photo, a title, and a blurb, and we're going to be using widgets and widget areas to add each of these, so you'll learn all about widgets. And I'm using a total of 4 widgets, but you can use as few or as many as you want to, depending on how many different things that you want to feature. I'm going to show you where I get these free high quality graphics that you see here, and you can use the same resource to find graphics that reflect your business. And also we'll be discussing in detail how to resize your graphics to ensure that they remain high quality and look professional on your site. I'll show you how to make each of these graphics a clickable link to another page on your site, or anywhere on the internet for that matter. And I've got mine linked to the detailed services page, so we can click on that to be taken there. And this is the same page that we would be taken to if we clicked on it in our menu here. And I'll show you how to create pages, of course, and add content to your pages using the visual editor. And you can add headings and paragraph text like you see here, and also you can add images. And I'll show you how to make any text a clickable link to another page, and I've got the Hong Kong text linked to a Wikipedia page, so I can click on that to be taken there just like that. Alright, let's go back, and I'm also going to show you how to utilize your sidebar widget area, and that's what you see here. I'm going to add a testimonial widget, but you can have whatever widgets you want to in your sidebar. Now I'm only going to create this one additional page here, but you'll be able to create as many different pages as you wish. And another option that you have when using the Serif theme is to not have any additional pages and just have a one-page website. Lots of businesses are using one-page sites to showcase their products and services, and the Serif theme front page features make it exceptionally easy to set up your site this way. Alright, I'll click on the logo to be taken back to the front page. And we'll go to the About section. I'll show you how to set this up with the different text options, including these showcase features here with the circular graphics. And then we'll scroll down. I'm going to show you how to set up your team member section with your own text and images, and you can showcase as many of your team members as you want to. You can hover over each team member and pull up a blurb about them. And you also have the option to link to your team members' social media pages here. Then we'll scroll down, and I'll show you how to add this testimonial section with photos and testimonial text. And we'll scroll down again, and I'll also show you how to set up this contact form. When your users fill out this contact form and submit it, a copy of their message will be sent to whatever email address you specify. So I'll show you how to set all that up. And also the contact form section here will have the same background image that you used for the title section at the top of the front page. Alright, let's scroll down, and then in the footer I'm going to show you how to set up all of this contact information. You can have your physical mailing address, your email address, and phone number here. And your users can click on the email address, and that would actually open up their email application on their computer, so they could send you an email directly from there. And if your users are using a mobile device to look at your site, they would be able to click on your phone number to dial it instead of having to type it in manually. And then you also have these optional social media links that you can use to link to your business social media pages if you want to. So all of this I'm going to show you how to create step by step without skipping any steps, so that everyone, including absolute beginners, can easily follow along and create this fantastic website. Alright, the first thing we need to do is set up a hosting account and a domain name, and for that I highly recommend using a company called HostGator.com. They've got a wonderful product and service and excellent pricing, and they also have an option for you to pay by the month, which makes it easier and cheaper to get started. So let's go ahead and go to HostGator.com. And then click on web hosting here at the top, and we'll scroll down, and you can see that you have 3 different options, and they're all currently 20% off. I'm going to show you how to get an even better deal than that using a coupon code. Now the hatchling plan is going to be your cheapest plan because it's only for hosting one domain on that account. Then the baby plan is a great value because you can host as many domains as you want on one account. So if you do have multiple websites, or if you plan on having multiple websites in the future, this is going to be a great value option for you. And then the business plan is going to have the same features as the baby plan, plus a free private security feature and a free toll-free number that most people probably don't need. So we're just going to go with the baby plan for now. So go ahead and click on sign up now. Now the first thing you need to do is choose a domain name, and of course a domain name is what your users would type into their web browser to access your website, such as google.com or amazon.com. If you already have a domain registered with another company such as godaddy.com, you could click on this tab here, and then you would enter your current domain here and then complete the rest of the hosting sign-up process. And then afterwards, HostGator will send you special instructions to your email for how to link your hosting account with your domain name. If you do need to register a new domain name, we're going to stay on this tab here. And I actually already own my domain name, which is quickwebsitecreation.com. And because I don't want to have to purchase a new domain name every time I make a new video tutorial, I'm going to use a subdomain, and for this tutorial it's going to be travel.quickwebsitecreation.com, but in your case you will need to register a new domain name if you don't have one. So just to show you what it would look like, you would enter the domain that you want in this box here, and we'll just type in travel adventure. And then you have several different endings. You have the .com and then all of these other endings. And we're going to choose the .com. So once we select that, it's going to tell us whether or not this traveladventure.com domain is available. And you can see here that this domain is currently not available, and it also tells you whether or not these other domain endings, the .net, the .org, and these others are available. So you could select one of these other available domain endings, or if we do want to find a .com domain, we can just try again and get a little more creative. So this time I'm going to type in Travel Adventure Agency, and I'm going to select .com again. And as you can see here, this particular domain, traveladventureagency.com, is available. And if you wanted to add these other domain endings, you can do that by checking the boxes here, but we're just going to leave it to traveladventureagency.com. And then we're going to scroll down, and the next thing you want to do is choose your hosting plan. And we did already decide to go with the baby plan, but you would just choose that here. And then for the billing cycle, you would select that here, and we're going to choose to pay for 1 month at a time, and this is just going to be cheaper and easier to get started this way. And then you'll choose a username following the criteria below here, and do the same thing with the security pin, and be sure to remember that. And then you're going to scroll down and enter your billing information here, and you can either pay with a credit card or you can pay with PayPal, and you would enter your payment information here. And then scroll down, and by default sometimes these additional services are added on, and I'm just going to go ahead and uncheck these. You can always add these later, but usually it's just easier to get started as cheaply as possible for most people. So we're just going to uncheck these options, and then we'll scroll down. Now, this coupon code, SNAPPY, gives you 20% off your hosting purchase. I've got a couple of different coupons that give you a better discount than that, so you can get started even easier. The first coupon code that I have is WP Sculptor 1 cent, so you would just type that in and then click on Validate. And this is going to give you your first month of web hosting for just 1 cent. And as you can see here, the domain is going to be $12.95, and that's the domain name. And that's going to cover you for a full year for your domain name. And then your first month of web hosting is just 1 cent, and that's a discount from the $9.95 that it usually is. So if you did this option, your first month of hosting would just be the 1 cent, and then every month thereafter you would be billed $9.95 a month, as long as you wanted to keep your website. Now the other coupon code that I have is WP Sculptor 25, and then click on Validate. This is going to give you 25% off your entire hosting order. So if you scroll up and selected a longer billing cycle to where you were purchasing multiple months in advance instead of just paying for 1 month at a time, you may very well save more money this way using the WP Sculptor 25 coupon code. But we're going to leave it to WP Sculptor 1 cent and click on Validate. And I do want to point out that not only do these coupon codes give you an additional discount on your hosting purchase, they also support me. I do get a commission for referring you to HostGator if you do use one of my coupon codes, and I sincerely appreciate that. It's a fantastic way for you to express your support for me and for these videos that I create. Please know that your support is very meaningful to me, and it allows me to continue making WordPress tutorials for you. So again, I sincerely thank you for using these coupon codes if you do need hosting. Okay, so let's scroll down, and you can see here that you do get free 24/7 customer support. You get free instant account activation, a 45-day money-back guarantee, And your domain name registration is going to cost $12.95, and that's going to cover you for an entire year, so you won't have to worry about that for a year. And then your first month of hosting is going to be the just 1 cent with the WP Sculptor 1 cent coupon code. And then after the first month, you would be billed $9.95 a month as long as you wanted to continue hosting your website. Your total is going to be $12.96, and then go ahead and click that you've read and agreed to the terms and conditions, and then click on Checkout Now. Alright, after about 15 minutes or so, you're going to check your email, and you should have an email from sales@hostgator.com. Go ahead and open that email up. And this email's got some important information about your hosting account, so be sure to save this email. And one of the things we need is the link to our control panel, which is going to be here, and then you have a username that you specified, and then you have a password that was automatically generated by HostGator. So first, go ahead and click on your control panel link. And this is going to open up the login screen, and then we'll need our username and password from the email. So you'll go back and get the username, and then you'll copy the password, and be sure to get all of the characters and don't get any extra spaces like that, just all the characters, and you'll copy that, and we'll log in with that username. And then of course I've already changed my password, but you would just paste yours in there and then click on login, and we can exit out of that. And this is what your cPanel looks like, your control panel, and this is where we're going to install WordPress onto our hosting account. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom, and underneath the Software and Services heading, we're going to click on Quick Install. And then we're going to come over on the left and click on WordPress, and then we'll scroll down, and we'll click on Install WordPress here on the right. Alright, in this first box, you're going to click here, and you're going to select your domain name. With a new hosting account, you should only have your domain name. I've got all these different subdomains, and for this tutorial, I'm going to install this WordPress installation on the travel.quickwebsitecreation.com domain, so I'm going to click on that. But again, you'll just click on your domain name, and then leave this box blank, and then you'll put in your email address there, and then give your website a title, and we can always change this. I'm going to show you how to change your site title here in just a moment, but we'll call this Mock Travel Adventure. And then you need to specify a username that you'll use to log in to your WordPress website. So type that in, and then your first and your last name, and then click on Install WordPress. Alright, after you get this message at the top, your WordPress installation is complete. Go ahead and click on View Credentials, and then you'll have a link to your WordPress admin area login screen, and this should just be your domain /wp-admin, and then we have the username that we just specified, and then we have another automatically generated password. Go ahead and save the login information, and of course we'll change this password to something we can actually remember in just a moment, but you will need that to log in the first time, so save this information. And then even though our WordPress installation is complete, we still won't be able to access our website right away. Anytime you register a new domain, it has to do what's called propagate, and this usually takes several hours, but sometimes it can take more than that, so just be patient with the process. It has nothing to do with HostGator. It can depend on several factors such as your physical location and your internet service provider, things like that. So just be patient, and we'll check back in a couple of hours. Alright, after a couple of hours, we're going to check back and see if our website's ready. So to do that, we're going to open a new tab and just type in your domain name. Alright, and when you get something that looks like this is what a brand new WordPress installation currently looks like. Right now, the default theme that comes with WordPress is the 2015 theme, which is what you see here. And of course, we're going to change the look and feel of our site completely with the Serif theme. But the first thing I want to do is show you how to log in to the back end of your WordPress website, which is where all the changes will be made. And to do that, you'll just type in your domain, and then at the end of your domain, type in /wp-admin. And this is going to take us to the login screen, and then we're going to go back and we're going to view our credentials again, and we're going to type in our username, and then we'll paste in this temporary password. I'll copy that, and we'll go back, type in your username and paste in that password and click on Login. Okay, and this is what our backend looks like. And again, this is where all of our changes will be made to our website. And before we really get into the good stuff, I want to take care of a few housekeeping items. The first thing we're going to do is deactivate a particular plugin. And to do that, we're going to come over here on the left and hover over Plugins and click on Installed Plugins. And we're going to come down and where it says WP Super Cache, we're going to click on Deactivate. And then we'll scroll down and hover over WP Super Cache and click on Delete. And then we'll click on Yes, delete these files and data. And the reason we're doing that is because the WP Super Cache plugin, it can cause delays in seeing the changes that you make to your website. So when we're creating our site and changing a bunch of things at once, we definitely want to be able to see those changes as they take place. Now it is a good plugin to have. It can help speed up your site for your website visitors, and you can always reinstall and activate that plugin later if you wish to, but it's just a good practice to go ahead and remove that plugin while you're building your site. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is change our password to something that we can actually remember. So to do that, let's go to the left here, hover over Users, click on All Users, and then you're going to hover over your username and click on Edit, then scroll down, and towards the bottom we can put in a new password. You'll type that in once and then click on the box below and type it in again, and then click on Update Profile. You always have to save your changes for them to take effect with WordPress. Alright, and now I want to go over the admin bar, and that's going to appear at the top of your site here. This is the admin bar. And then to switch back and forth between the front end and back end of your site, you can hover over your site title here and click on that. And that takes us to the front end of our site, and then we can click on our site title again to be taken back to the back end, just like that. And what I like to do is right click or control click on the site title if you're using a Mac, and then open the link in a new tab, and that way I can have two windows going with my front end and my back end. And I do want to point out that the admin bar will only show up on your computer screen when you're logged into the back end of your WordPress site, so your users will never see this, just you when you're logged in. And then to log out of your back end, you can hover over your username here on the right on the admin bar and click on Log Out. And now when I just go to my domain name and press enter, you can see that the admin bar is no longer showing up. Alright, so let's go ahead and log back in by going back to our domain /wp-admin. And we'll log in with the credentials, our username, and then the password that we just set up. And click on Login. And I do want to point out that if you leave your WordPress backend logged in overnight, for example, when you're not working on your site, and then you come back the next morning, you might need to log out and then log back in to be able to make changes. So just something to be aware of. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on my site title to open that up in the front end. And then I can switch back and forth now between my front end and my back end by clicking here, and then I'll need to log back in again for this tab since we just logged out. Type in my new password, click on Login. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and exit out of these tabs that we no longer need, and I'll leave my back end and my front end tab open. And then the next thing we're going to do is download and install the free Serif theme that we're going to use. So to do that, let's come over here on the left, hover over Appearance, and click on Themes. And then come up here to the top and click on WordPress.org Themes. And then we're going to come over here to the right to the search bar and type in Serif and press enter. And that should be the only one that pops up. We're going to hover over it and click on Install. And then we need to click on Activate to activate this theme and replace the default 2015 theme with the Serif theme. And now when we view the front end of our site and refresh the page, notice that we now have a completely different look and feel, and this is the Serif theme. And one of the amazing features of the Serif theme is that it automatically puts in the sample content that you see here, and that just makes it really easy for us to set up a really professional looking website fairly quickly, because we can just replace the content that's already there. Alright, just two more basic settings before we get into the more exciting part of the video where we actually get to add our own content, replace this sample content that's here, and then of course we'll make some customizations to the Zarif theme. But first we need to set up our site title and tagline, and this is something that search engines will look at, and also both the title and tagline will appear at the top of your user's browser. You can see here it says Mock Travel Adventure, that's my site title, and then you can see the start of the tagline, but if I keep my cursor hovered over, you can see that the tagline is just another WordPress site, and this is the default tagline, so of course we want to change that. So to do that, we're going to go back to the back end, and then we're going to come down on the left towards the bottom, hover over Settings, and then click on General. And next to site title, we could choose to change that, but that's actually the title that I want, so I'm going to leave that. And then for the tagline, I'm going to select what's there and delete it, and replace it with Your Premium Travel Agency. And then I'll scroll down, and we do need to save the change. Click on Save Changes. And then we'll come back and view the front end and refresh the page. And you can see now we've got the tagline changed. It now says Your Premium Travel Agency. Alright, the last thing we need to do before we start adding our own content is make sure that we have our front page settings set up correctly. And of course your front page is the page that appears when you type your domain name into a web browser. And with the Zarif theme, you do need to make sure that your front page is set up a certain way so that you have access to all the amazing front page features, and everything you see on this page is a front page feature, all these different things here. So to set that up correctly, we're going to go back to the back end, and we're going to go to Settings and click on Reading. And next to front page displays, we need to make sure that our setting is set to your latest post. So front page displays your latest post, and this should be the default setting, but you do need to make sure that's checked. If you already have a WordPress website set up with a different theme, you may very well have this set to a static page. But for the Zarif theme, if you're using the Zarif theme, you do need to make sure it's set to your latest posts. Now normally with most WordPress themes, setting your front page to display your latest posts would mean that your front page would show your latest blog posts. But with the Zarif theme, this front page setting is a little bit different. And in order to activate the front page features we discussed, you do need to have it set to your latest posts, even if you don't actually want to have a blog on your site. And in this tutorial, we aren't going to be using the blogging features anyway. So just make sure your front page is set up to show your latest posts, and then if you do need to make a change, then you would scroll down and click on Save Changes. Alright, now we're going to go over where all the major changes will be made if you're using the Zarif theme, and different themes will have different theme options and settings. To access the Zarif theme settings, we're going to go hover over Appearance and click on Customize. And then notice on the right here we have our front page as it's currently set up with all the demo content in place. And on the left we have different theme settings, and you can click on each of these settings to bring up additional options. And I do want to point out that some of the settings, such as the sections, order, and colors, if we click on that, this is only going to be available with the Pro version of the Zarif theme. So you could purchase the Pro version if you wanted more customization options, such as changing your section order and your website color scheme. And if you wanted to purchase that, you could click here where it says Pro version, or you can click on View Pro version here, and that's going to open some purchase options in a new tab. But we're going to be using the free version for this tutorial. So the next thing we're going to do is start working through these different Zarif theme settings one at a time here. We'll click on the site title and tagline. Of course, we already set this up using the traditional WordPress method. And then the section order and colors, of course, you will need the Pro version for those options. The general options, we're going to come back to this later in the video when we set up our social media and contact information and our logo. So we'll click the back arrow here. And the first section we're actually going to start with is the big title section, so I'm going to click on that, and then I can scroll down here to see the rest of those options. And of course the big title section is referring to this section on your front page. We have this background image with this title, and then we have these two button options. So the first thing we're going to do is change the title here. And I do want to point out that you could hide the big title section if you did not want to display it by checking the box there. But of course we do want to display the big title section, so we'll leave that unchecked. And then to change the title, all we need to do is select the text that's here in the title spot and delete that. And then we'll add our own title. And I'm going to say Welcome to Mock Travel Adventure. I'll type that in. And then notice how this change is actually we're gonna get a preview of it on the right. Okay. And then I do want to point out that even though we've made this change, it actually won't take effect on our site until we click on Save and Publish. So let's go ahead and do that. And then when we view the front end of our site and refresh the page, we now have our new site title there. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is set up these optional buttons here, and they can have whatever title you want, and they can also link to anywhere on your website or anywhere on the internet for that matter. And to set these up, we're going to go back to the back end to our Customize section, and then of course within the Big Title section options, the first button, we have the red button label here, and by default it has the title of Features. If you wanted to remove the button entirely, you could select the title, the button label, and delete it. And you can see that that removes the button, and of course if you wanted that change to take effect, you would need to save and publish. But of course we're going to use the red button, and we're going to call it Our Services. So I'll type that in for the red button label, and then underneath that we have the red button link, and this is where we specify which page we want our users to be directed to when they click on the button. And later in the video we're going to link to the Our Services section, but since we don't have that set up yet, just to show you how this would work, we're going to link to google.com. So I'm going to open a new tab and go to Google. So whatever web page you want to link to, you would copy the URL, and then we can go back, and where it says red button link, we can select all that's there and delete it, and then we can paste in our own URL just like that. And now let's go ahead and set up the green button, and I do want to point out this is incorrectly labeled the red button label again. This second one is actually referring to the green button, so don't be confused by that. And for this one we're going to call this Contact Us. So I'll type that in. And again, later in the video we'll link to our contact section, but for now I'm going to delete the link that's there and also link this button to Google by pasting in the Google URL. And then let's go ahead and save and publish to save these changes. And now when we view the front end of our site and refresh the page, notice that our buttons have changed, and I can click on the button to be taken to Google. And then I'm going to go back to the front end of my website, and the next thing we're going to do is replace the background image that appears behind the big title section, and then if we scroll down it's also going to appear behind our contact form section that we're going to set up later in the video. So first I'm going to get my background image, and of course you can use your own, but I'm going to use a wonderful free resource called pixabay.com. So I'm going to open up a new tab and go to pixabay.com. And this is a wonderful resource because you have tons of high quality images that you can use freely on your site, and you don't even have to leave an attribution to the creator of the image. So it's just a wonderful resource. And then for my background image, I'm going to search for Castle, Germany. I'll type that in. I'll leave this set to all images and click on the search icon. Now all of these are going to be free except for this top row. These are sponsored images. You can see it says sponsored there. So everything else on this page is going to be free to use. And then I really liked this image here for my background, so I'm going to click on that. That's going to open the image up in another page. And then to download the image, you have several different size options. Now normally I go with the medium 1280 pixel wide option, and the reason for this is because you can always take a larger image and scale it down and make it smaller and not lose quality. But you can't do the opposite. You can't take a small image and make it larger without losing some degree of quality. So what oftentimes happens with people that try to take a small image and make it larger, they'll notice that their image is real blurry or fuzzy, and this is something we definitely want to avoid. So for that reason, I find that the medium size option is usually going to be larger than I would need. Now, there is an exception here with the background image. Because our background image is so big and wide and it's going to span the full width of our computer screen, I'm going to download the extra large image. So I'm going to select that option, and then you would click on the free download button. And for downloading the extra large images on Pixabay, you do need to sign up for a free account. It's very easy to do. So once you sign up, you'll be able to download that image. And I've already got all of my images downloaded and saved to my computer in a folder. So be sure to save that image to somewhere on your computer where you can easily find it. And then to add our image to our website, we're going to go back to the back end of our site. And I'm going to exit out of this, and just to show you again how to access the Customize section, you're going to go to Appearance and click on Customize. And then to add our background image, we're going to go in this section here, scroll down, and click on Background Image. Then we'll scroll down again, and then we can click on Remove to remove that image that's there by default. And then we can click on Select Image, and then make sure you're on this Upload Files tab, because we're going to find this file on our computer, and then click on Select Files. And then I'm going to find the image that I have. I've got it downloaded right here. And then I'm going to click on Open. And that's going to load. And then I do want to point out that you do have this caption, alt text, and description text option, and you can fill these out with descriptive text that basically describes the image. And this is something you might want to do for search engine optimization purposes. Because search engines can't read images, it's a good idea to give the search engine an idea of what the image is representing. But for the sake of time, we're going to leave these blank for this tutorial. And then you want to click on Choose Image and give that a minute, and now you can see that we have our new background image, and we have it behind our big title section here. And if we scroll down, we also have it behind our contact section. And you can probably tell that there is a dark image filter that's part of the Serif theme. So whatever image you use, it's going to be a little bit darker when you add it to your website. And the reason for this is because it makes this title text, this white title text, pop a little bit more, and it also makes these buttons pop a little bit from the background. So it's just a good feature. Another thing I want to point out before we save and publish is that depending on how long your title text is, you might not be able to see the whole height of your background image. So just be aware of that when you're selecting a background image. You might not be able to see the whole thing. But let's go ahead and save and publish to save these changes. And now let's go back to the front end of our site and refresh the page. And you can see we now have our new background image. And if we scroll down, we also have that same background image behind our contact form that we're going to set up later in the video. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is add content to the Our Focus section, which is this section here right beneath the big title section. So first let's change the Our Focus title and the subtitle. So to do that, we'll go back to the back end to our customized screen, and then let's scroll up, and we're going to click on Our Focus section. And of course you could check this box if you wanted to hide the focus section and not display it at all, but we are going to be using it, so I'm going to leave that unchecked. And then of course to change the title, we're going to select what's there and delete it, and I'm going to type in Our Services. And then for the subtitle, the same thing. I'm going to triple click to select all of that text, and then I can use the delete key to remove it all. And be sure to remove every bit of text that's in place before you add your own. And then I'm just going to copy and paste some text that I have here for my subtitle. I'll paste that in. And then let's go ahead and save and publish. And then we'll view the front end of our site and refresh the page. Alright, now we've got our new title and subtitle in place there. The next thing we're going to do is replace the images, the titles, and the paragraphs that you see here with our own content. And before we do that, we're going to actually get the graphics that we're going to use in place of these graphics. And using professional graphics and icons is another great way, simple way to increase the professionalism of your site. And for that, we're going to go back to pixabay.com. So I'll open a new tab. and go back to Pixabay. When you're searching for graphics for your site, you might need to try several different broad search terms before you find exactly what you're looking for. Now, for my first graphic, I'm going to look for a plain graphic, so I'm going to type in plain, and then where it says all images, I'm going to click on that and change the image type to vector graphics by clicking there. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to limit my search results to show only graphics and icons of planes and not photographs of planes. And another reason is vector graphics tend to have transparent backgrounds, which is exactly what we want, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But let's go ahead and click on the search icon. And then this first plane icon here is the one that I want to use, so I'm going to click on that. And notice we have this checkered background, and a checkered background represents a transparent background, which, like I said, is exactly what we want. And the reason we want a transparent background for our graphics is because we want the graphics to take on the background color that we have on our website. And in our case, we do have a white background for the Our Focus section where these graphics are going to go. So technically we could use images or graphics that had white background colors, but if we changed themes and had a different background color, then we'd have to start over with our graphics. So it's just a good practice to get graphics with transparent backgrounds from the very beginning. Now, for the size option, I know I mentioned earlier in the video that I usually get this 1280 pixel wide size option. But we have another exception with our graphics, and we're going to be downloading the small graphic size because the 640 pixel wide graphic is actually still going to be much larger than we're going to use on our actual site. We're going to be shrinking our graphics down considerably. So this is another case where we can always shrink our images without losing quality, so we might as well get the smallest one that we would need. And we're going to do that, so we're going to click on free download after we select that size. And of course I've got all of my graphics saved to a folder on my computer, but you'll just save your graphics to somewhere where you can find them. Now, to add the rest of our content to the Our Focus section, let's go back to the back end, and we're on the Customize screen here. And we've got Our Focus section selected, and we just added our title and our subtitle. But if we look at the preview of our front end here, in the Our Focus section, we have the graphics, the titles, and the paragraphs, and we don't have an option to change that here. And the reason is because changing these other elements of the Focus section requires us to use what are called widgets and widget areas. Now, widgets are basically tools that enable us to add additional features and functionality to our site. And WordPress comes with several widgets by default, but different themes and plugins will oftentimes come with additional widgets, and you'll see that with the widgets that come with the Serif theme in just a moment. Now, widget areas are the different sections on your site where you can add widgets, and different themes will have different widget areas. This is just an example of one of the widget areas that's available with the Serif theme, this section right here. And with the Serif theme, there are a couple of different ways to access widgets and widget areas, but I'm going to show you the traditional method because it will work with the Serif theme, and it will also apply to most other WordPress themes. So if you do decide to experiment with other themes, you'll have a better understanding of how to use widgets and widget areas for those different themes. So to access our widgets and widget areas, we're going to back out by clicking the X button and go back to the main part of our back end. And then we're going to come down, hover over Appearance, and click on Widgets. And here on the right, we have all of the available widget areas that come with the Serif theme. And then here on the left, we have all of our available widgets. And if we scroll down, you can see that there are 4 different Serif widgets that came specifically with the Serif theme. Now on the right here, in this sidebar widget area, don't worry about this for now. We're going to come back to this later in the video, but for now I'm just going to click on this arrow to minimize that widget area. And then the first thing I want to do is find the Our Focus widget. So we'll scroll down, and that's going to be this widget here, the Serif widget. So to add this to the Our Focus widget area, which is here, the Our Focus section, I'm going to click on the widget, and then I'm going to click on the Our Focus section because that's the widget area I want this widget assigned to, and then I'll click on Add Widget. Now, I do want to point out you can use any of the widgets in any of the widget areas, but since the Our Focus widget was specifically designed for the Our Focus section, that's the one we're going to be using for now. So that's going to pull up all these different options for the widget. So for now, we'll start with the title, and I've got the paragraph text selected. So for this one, I'm going to call it International Travel. So I'll type that in there, and then I'm going to paste in some text that I've already got written out. Paste that in there, and then for the link, eventually we'll have this widget linked to another page on our site, but since we haven't created that page yet, I'm just going to leave this blank for now. And then the next thing we'll do is add our plane icon to this widget that we just downloaded. And you should be able to click on this upload image button, but nothing happens when I do that. So we're going to use a roundabout method to add our image, our icon. And to do that, let's go over here on the left, hover over media, and you would click on add new, but I'm going to control click or right click if you're using a PC and click on open link in new tab. That way I can keep my widget screen open, and then now my add new media screen is in this new tab. Then I'm going to click on select files, and I'm going to find that graphic that I downloaded, the plane graphic, and select that, and then I'm going to click on open. And this is going to upload the graphic to my WordPress media library. Alright, and once it appears here, that means the upload is complete. And then we're going to go to media and click on library. And here we have all of the images that we have on our website, and currently we just have the plane graphic and we have our background image. I'm going to click on the plane graphic, and then I need to copy the URL, so I'm going to select all of the text. It's very important that you get every character, otherwise this won't work. So we're going to copy this, and then we're going to go back to our widget screen and make sure you've got the Our Focus widget selected. You may need to click on the arrow to bring down those options again. And where it says image in that box, we're going to click there, and then we're going to paste in that URL. And then we're going to click on save. Alright, and now let's view the front end of our site, and we'll refresh the page. Alright, and notice that, I want you to notice a couple of things actually. First of all, as soon as we added our widget, it replaced all of the sample content. So that's good, that's what we want. And then the next thing, notice that we have the image, the title, and the paragraph, but the image, there's obviously something wrong with it. It does not look the way it's supposed to. And the reason for this is because we need to manually shrink this image down quite a bit, because it's displaying this image just as large as the actual original file is that we downloaded from Pixabay. So to resize this graphic, let's go back to our backend, to our media library. We'll exit out of this, and of course you're just going to click on media and click on library. And then we'll click on our plane graphic, and then we need to click on edit image. And then we'll come over here to the top right, and we're going to scale the image, and I'm going to select where it says 640. And you may need to experiment with some trial and error, but I found that having a 95 pixel wide graphic worked pretty well for my plane graphic. So I'm going to type in 95 there, and then that's going to automatically fill in the height that keeps this graphic proportionate, which is what we want. So then we're going to click on scale, and you can see that shrunk the image down considerably, and that's going to save automatically. And I do want to point out, if you do need to try again, if you resize the image and it's not going to work for you, you can always click on restore original image and then click on restore there and then scale it again. But I think this is going to work pretty well, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out. And then I'm going to click on the plane icon again, and now I'm going to copy the new URL by selecting all of that. And we'll copy this, and then I'll go back to my widget section, and I'll make sure I've got my focus widget open by clicking here, and I'm going to select the URL that's currently in place and delete all of it. Make sure you delete every single character, and then we'll paste in the new URL, and then I'm going to click on save. And now when we view the front end of our site and refresh the page, we now have our plane showing up at the proper size, and I think that looks pretty good. And then to add the other 3 focus widgets that I'm going to use, I'm going to follow the exact same steps. And I do want to point out, of course, you can use as few or as many different focus widgets as you want. I'm going to use a total of 4. So let's go ahead and go back to our back end and to our widgets section. Of course, go to Appearance and click on Widgets. And then I can click on the arrow here to minimize this first focus widget. And then to add another focus widget to our focus section, I'm going to scroll down and click on the Our Focus widget that I want to add and leave it checked to Our Focus section and click on Add Widget. And for this one, I'm going to call it Luxury Cruises. So I'll type that in and then I'll paste in some paragraph text that I have here. And I'll paste that in, and then I'll leave the link blank for now. We'll come back and fill that in later. And then to add the image, I'm going to go back to my Media tab, and I'll exit out of this, and of course go to Media and click on Add New. And then I'm going to click on Select Files, and this is going to be the boat icon that I got from Pixabay. So I'm going to open that up, and that's going to go ahead and upload. And then I need to resize my boat icon, so I'm going to go to Media and click on Library. Then I'll click on the boat image, and then I'll click on Edit Image to resize this. So I'm going to scale it down, and I'm going to start out by trying 95 pixels, the same width that we found worked really well for our plane icon. And of course that's going to automatically fill in the height, and then I'm going to click on Scale. And that's going to save automatically. And now I'm going to exit out of this and open up the boat icon again and copy the URL by triple clicking on that and copy, and then we'll go back to our widgets screen and I'll paste that in where it says underneath image, and then I'll go ahead and save. Now let's view the front end of our site and refresh the page here. Okay, that looks pretty good, but I do want to resize this. I think it looks a little too small, so I'm going to make this a little bit larger. And to do that, we'll go back to the back end, and we'll go back to our Media Library back end screen, and then exit out of this, and of course go to Media Library, and then we'll select the boat icon by clicking on it to open that up again. And then we're going to click on Edit Image again. And first we need to restore the image to its original size by clicking on Restore Original Image and then click on Restore Image. And you always want to do that when you're going to resize an image for the second time. You want to restore it back to its original size. Okay, and then now we can resize it, and let's try 110 pixels by typing that in there and then click on Scale. And then we can click the X button and click on the boat icon once more, copy the URL, and go back to our widget screen and select this URL, delete it, and replace it with the new one, and click on Save. And then let's view the front end of our site and refresh the page. Alright, I think that looks quite a bit better now. And let's go back to our widgets section in our back end by going to, of course, Appearance, Widgets. And then we'll scroll up and make sure you have the Our Focus section widget open by clicking the box there. And then I'll click this arrow to minimize the second Our Focus widget options. And I want to show you that you can rearrange these widgets by holding and dragging and releasing just like that. And that's going to save automatically, by the way. And now if we view the front end and refresh, these two will be flipped just like that. So I just wanted to point that out. And then if we go back to our widget screen, of course I'm going to keep them the way they were by holding and dragging again. But if you did want to remove one of these widgets entirely, you could click on the widget to open up the widget options and then scroll down and you could delete it, and that would remove it. So I just wanted to show you how that works. Alright, for the sake of time, I'll add the last two focus widgets off camera, and of course I'll be following the exact same steps that we just went over, so I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my other two focus widgets in place, and now when we view the front end of our site, and I'll scroll up just so you can see that we are of course on our front page, and I'll refresh the page, and we can scroll down. You see that we now have our four focus widgets in place. And by the way, the color, this is the color scheme that comes with the Serif theme. It's going to alternate this red, green, blue, and yellow pattern. So if you added more, the next one would be red again, and then you'd have another green one just like that. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is set up the About Us section here, and this is of course on our front page, and we're going to use this section to describe our business and some of our key attributes, and of course we'll be replacing all of the demo content that's in place here. So to access the About Us section, let's go back to the back end of our site, and we're going to go to Appearance and click on Customize to be taken back to the Customize area. And then we're going to click on the About Us section here. And that's going to bring up these different settings. Go ahead and click on the Settings tab. And first of all, of course, we are going to leave this box unchecked because we do want to display this section. And then for the main content, I'll click on that. I'm going to leave the title to About. And then I'm going to change the subtitle. I'm going to triple click what's there to select all of it and then delete it. And I'm going to copy and paste in a subtitle I have. And I'll paste that in. And then for the big left side title, I'm going to select what's there and remove it. And copy and paste this in. And then for my text here, these are the paragraphs. This is where you would put your paragraph text. And I'll scroll down so we can see. This text here is referring to this box, the text that's in this box here. So first we're going to delete all of that by selecting it and clicking the delete key. And do make sure that you get every bit of text deleted there. And what I recommend doing is typing out your paragraphs in a separate program, just like I've done, because this text box is so small, so it'll just be a little bit easier to do it that way. And I'm going to copy in one paragraph at a time. So I'm going to copy my first paragraph. And I'll paste that in. And we'll let that load here so you can see. Okay. Now if I were to paste in my second paragraph right at the end of this first paragraph, then it would look like one big paragraph. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all the way at the end of our text here. And by the way, if you're at the front of your text, you would just click, hold, and drag as if you're selecting it, and then release, and that's going to take you to the end, and then you can click on the end there, and your cursor might not blink, but it is showing up on the end there. And I'm going to add an HTML code, a very, very basic HTML code to add a line break. And that's going to be a less than sign, and BR, and then a greater than sign. And that's going to add one line break, but since I want to have a space between my two paragraphs, I'm going to add a second line break, so I'll copy type in the exact same HTML code again. That's going to be the less than, and then BR, and greater than. And then I'm going to copy my second paragraph. Copy that, and then I'll select here. And again, your cursor might not be blinking, that's fine. I'm going to paste that second paragraph in. And I'll scroll down. And there we go, we have our second paragraph added. And then for our features here, I'm going to use 3 features. You can use up to 4, but I'm just going to use the 3. So for the first one, I'm going to click where it says feature number 1. And for the title, this one's going to be customer service. So I'll type that in. And then I'll have a little blurb that I'm going to copy and paste. And then I'll paste that in there. And then you can specify whatever percentage you want, and we'll scroll down. And this is the percentage that's going to show up on your small circular graph that you have next to each feature here. So we're going to type in 100% for all of our different circle graphs. And then for feature number 2, that one I'm going to give it a title of Best Prices Guaranteed. So I'll copy that, paste that in. Oh, pasted it in the wrong place. I'm going to paste it in to replace this title. And then for the paragraph text, or the sentence, I'm going to copy this, paste that in, and for the percentage, I'm going to change that to 100 again. And then for feature number 3, we'll select the title that's there, remove it, and we're going to do Quality Lodging Guaranteed. So I'll type that in. And then for the text, of course, we'll follow the same steps. Copy that and paste that in there. And then of course I'll change the feature percentage to 100. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on Save and Publish. And I'll back out to the main part of my backend and click on the X here to get to the main part. I do want to point out real quick before we view the front end of our site with our new changes, there is, if we go to Appearance Widgets, there is an About Us widget area section that you can utilize. And you might want to experiment with the Clients widget, or any of these for that matter, but I think the Clients widget would be more specifically designed for the About Us widget area. We're not going to worry about that, but I do want to point that out so that you can experiment with that on your own. And now let's view the front end of our site. And we are on the About Us section, and when I refresh the page, of course, we now have our new content in place. And it does look like I forgot to delete the fourth feature here, and also my circular graphs aren't showing the 100% that I specified. So we're going to fix all that. So first let's go back and delete the fourth feature by going back to our backend and go back to Appearance, Customize. And we're going to come and click on the About Us section, and then for feature number 4, we're going to click on that, and then all we need to do is remove the content that's in place by selecting it and deleting it. And now when we save and publish and go back to the front end and refresh the page, notice that we've gotten rid of our fourth feature here, but we still have the 100% aren't showing up. And the only reason that's happening is because for some reason my browser window is remembering the percentages that were in place before we changed that. So all we need to do is exit out of this window. And if I go back to my back end and just go back to the main section, and I'm going to open up my front end by clicking here. I'll control click with a Mac or right click with a PC to open the link in a new tab. And that's going to take me to my front end. Now when I scroll down, you'll see that the 100% is correctly in place there. So that was just a simple browser issue. It was just remembering the old percentages. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is set up the team member section, which of course is on the front page underneath the About section. And this is where you would want to highlight a little bit about yourself and or your key employees. So you'll be able to have a picture of your employees, and then when you hover over the picture, you can put a brief write-up about the employee, and then of course the employee's name and title, and then you have the option to link to these different social media pages if you wish to. So to set this section up, we're going to go back to the back end. And we're going to go to Appearance, Customize. And then we're going to click on the Our Team section. Scroll down. And of course we're going to leave this box unchecked to display the team section on our site. And then we'll change the title of the section to Meet Your Personal Travel Agents. So I'll just type that in there. And then for the subtitle, I'm going to select what's there and remove it. And I'm going to paste in little bit of text that I have here. Alright, and now I'm going to go ahead and save and publish the title and subtitle changes, and click on the X arrow to back out, because to add the team members we need to use a widget to do that. And so we're going to make sure we're under the Appearance and click on Widgets to be on the widget page in the back end. And you see here we have the Our Team section. This is the widget area for the team section. So let's scroll down. And I'm going to find the Zarif team member widget. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to click on the Our Team section to assign that to the Our Team section and click on Add Widget. And then for this first team member, I'm going to give it a name, and that's going to be Jane Doe. The position is going to be Senior Travel Agent. And then I've got a description I'll copy and paste in. And this is the text that's going to show up when your users hover over the team member's image. And then you have these optional Facebook or optional social media links that you can use. If you don't want to use the social media links, just leave them blank. But just to show you what you would do, we're going to open up a new tab, exit out of these tabs that I don't need anymore. And you would go for Facebook, you would go to facebook.com and you would find the Facebook page of your employee, and then once you were on that team member's personal Facebook page, you would copy the URL and then go back to the widget, and you would paste that in under the Facebook link text there. And then we'll do one more for Twitter. You would just go to the employee's Twitter page, And of course you would go to their actual individual Twitter page and then copy the URL and paste that in there. And then to add the team member image, we can't click on upload image. Nothing happens when I click on that. So we're going to use the same method that we used when we added graphics to the Our Focus widgets earlier in the video. So let's go over here on the left, and we're going to hover over media. And I'm going to hover over add new and control click or right click if you're using a PC and open that link in a new tab to have these two windows going at once. And then I'm going to click on select files to find the team member image on my computer. And again, I got this from pixabay.com, and this is a 1280 pixel wide download option that I downloaded. So for this first one, I'm going to select that and click on open. And then I'm going to go to media and click on library. And then I'll click on the image to open that up, and I need to copy the URL. So I'll select that and copy it, and then I'll go back to my widget section, and underneath image I'll paste that URL in. And let's go ahead and click on save, and I want to show you what happens with the image. Let's view the front end of our site, and we'll refresh the page. Okay, so of course we have the title and subtitle that we added, and we also have the image. When we hover over the image, we get the text that we put in there, and then we have the team member's name and the title, and then the two social media pages. And of course, if I click on one of these, this one's going to take me to the Twitter page. But we'll go back, and you probably noticed that the image looks a little squished. And the reason for this is because we need to have square images to where the height and width are the exact same size so that this doesn't happen. We don't actually have to resize the image. We just need to crop it to where it's square. And this we had to resize our graphics earlier in the video. We don't actually have to do that when we're using the team member widget. But we do need to go back and make this a square image. So to do that, we're going to go back to our media library. I'll exit out of this. You're going to go to media and click on library, and then we'll click on the image that we want to edit, and then we're going to click on edit image. And like I said, instead of resizing this image, we're going to crop this image. So we need to set our aspect ratio. So I'm going to click in this first box here and type in 1. And then I'm going to click in the second box and type in 1. And that way my height and width are going to be the same size. So now when I come over here to the image, you need to click within the image. If you click up here, it's not going to work. So make sure you're within the image. So I'm going to hold shift on my keypad, and that's going to maintain this aspect ratio of 1:1 that we just specified. So with shift held on my keypad, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to drag, and that's going to be a square. So I'll select about that much of the image, then I can release. I can release shift, and I can release on my keypad, or on my mouse I can release, and now I can click, hold, and drag this box to position it where I want it to crop. That looks pretty good. We'll do right there, and then I'm going to click on this crop icon, and now I need to save the image. Clicking save, and now I can copy this new URL that I have by clicking on that to select it, and I'll copy that and go back to my widget section and select the URL that's there and delete it and paste in this new one, and then click on save. And I'll go back to the front end of my site and refresh the page. And now you can see that the image looks much better. Alright, now we can go back and add our other team member widget. So we'll go back to our back end, to our widget section. And I'm going to click on the Zarif team member widget and assign that to the Our Team section and click on Add Widget. And then I'm going to go back off camera just to save time for the video tutorial and fill in the exact same details that we filled in before. And also for the image, of course, we're going to go back and crop our image to make it square. So I'll do that real quick and I'll be right back. Alright, I just added the information for my second team member widget here, and just so you know, I did add a LinkedIn link. So I'm going to click on save. And then let's scroll up a little bit, and I can click on each widget to minimize the widget settings. I'll do the same for my first team member widget. And I just want to review, you can rearrange the order of these widgets by click, holding, and dragging and releasing, just like that. But I'll leave the order as I had it before. And now let's view the front end. And of course we're on our front page on the team member section. I'll refresh the page. And now you can see we have both of our team member widgets in place. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is set up the testimonials section on our front page, and of course we'll fill in our own content here. So to do that, let's go back to the back end, and we're going to go to Appearance and click on Customize. And then we'll click on the testimonials section here on the left, and then we'll scroll down. And of course you can hide the testimonial section if you don't want to utilize that, but we'll leave this box unchecked. And then we'll leave the title to testimonials, and I'll change the subtitle to See What Our Customers Are Saying, period. And I'll scroll down, and you can see that our subtitle is now appearing there. And then to add our individual testimonials, we'll go back and utilize widgets, but let's go ahead and save and publish the change we made to our subtitle. And then we'll exit out of this to be taken back to the main part of our back end, and make sure you're on the Appearance Widgets page. And notice that we do have this testimonial section widget area. So let's scroll down, and we're going to add a Zarif testimonial widget. So click on that and then scroll down, and we need to assign that to the testimonial section. So we'll click on that there and click on Add Widget. And then we'll just fill in this information, and you don't have to utilize all the information, but we're going to go ahead and add an author, and this first one is going to be Dana Joe. I'll type that in, and then you could choose to link to the testimonial authors page if they had a web page or a social media page. We're going to leave that blank. We're also going to leave the author details blank, but you could list the testimonial author's contact information if you wanted to, an email address or a phone number if they were willing to do that, but we'll leave that blank. And then for the text, and this is where you're going to put the client's actual testimonial, we're going to copy this. I've got this typed out, and I'll paste that in here. And then to add our image, we're going to follow the exact same method that we just utilized when we added our team member images. So we're going to go back to this other tab that I have here, which is also my back end. I'm going to exit out of that. You're going to go to Media and click on Add New. And then we're going to click on Select Files to find the testimonial person's image that I've got here. And of course I downloaded all of my images from Pixabay, including this one, and this is a 1280 pixel wide image. So I'm going to open this image up, and that's going to upload to my media library. And then I need to go to Media and click on Library, and we need to crop this image and make it a square image just like we did with our team member images. We don't need to resize it, but we do need to crop it. So we're going to click on the image that we want to crop, and then we're going to click on Edit Image. And we're going to change the aspect ratio to 1:1, so we'll type in 1 in each place. And then we'll come over to the image. We'll hold Shift on our keypad and then click on the image. So click, hold, and drag while holding Shift, and then I'll release, and then I can click, hold, and drag to position this where I want it. That looks pretty good. And then I can click on this crop icon to crop this image and make it square, and then we need to save the image. And then I need to copy the URL by clicking here, and then I'll copy that and go back to my widget section of my back end, and in the widget settings under image I'll paste that URL, and then I'll click on Save. And now let's view the front end of our site, and we're on the testimonials section on our front page. I'll refresh the page, and you can see we now have our first testimonial added. We've got the testimonial text here, the author title, and then the image. And if you added a link to the widget settings, this author title would be clickable, and that would take you to wherever you specified for the link. And then if you added author details, they would appear beneath the author's title. Alright, the next thing I'll do is add the other two testimonial widgets next to this first one, and to do that, of course, I'll go back to the back end, and under Appearance, Widgets, I'll click on the testimonial widget, assign it to my testimonials section, and click on Add Widget, and then I'll scroll down, and I'm going to fill in the details for this one and one more, and I'll do that off camera to save time for the tutorial. But I'll follow the exact same steps, and of course you do need to scale your images down to make them square, just like we did in the previous step. And you want to do that to avoid having squished looking images for your testimonial images. But I'll take care of all that and I'll be right back. Alright, I've just added our other two testimonial widgets in place here, and I've saved all of the changes that we made. And of course we can minimize these by clicking on each widget, and we can rearrange them. If you wanted to rearrange the order of your testimonials, you could click, hold, and drag and release, but I'll leave them the way that I had them. And then also to delete any one of these, if you needed to redo it or remove it entirely, you could click on the widget to open up the settings and of course click on delete there. But let's go ahead and view the front end of our site, and we'll refresh the page. Alright, notice we now have the other two testimonial widgets in place there. And then the last thing I want to show you regarding the testimonial widgets, this is purely a personal preference, but if you're like me, I like things to be pretty symmetrical. So if I wanted my other two widgets to come down and be just as long as this one, so we didn't have this blank space here and this little bit of blank space here, then we can go back and add line break HTML code, very simple HTML code, the same code that we used earlier in the video in the About section. So to do that, we can go back to our widget section, Appearance, Widgets, and the first one we need to do is add a couple of line breaks to this widget. So I'll click on the widget to make sure that the widget settings are open, and then within the text I'm going to find the bottom of the text and click there right at the end, and then add the less than and then BR and then greater than symbol, and that's going to be one line break, and then I'll do that one more. Okay, and then I'm going to save that change. And then the second testimonial widget, I'm going to click on that to open up the settings. And this one, I did a little trial and error experimentation and found that I need 3 line breaks. So I'm going to add that code 3 times. And then save the changes. And now if we view the front end of our site and refresh the page, notice that they are all the same height. Alright, the next thing we'll do is scroll down, and the next section we have is this latest news section on our front page. And basically, if you're utilizing the blogging features of WordPress, then your latest news section will show your most recent blog posts. We actually aren't going to cover blog settings in this video tutorial, so we're going to deactivate this latest news section. And to do that, we'll go back to the back end, and we'll go to Appearance, click on Customize. Then we're going to scroll down and click on Latest News Section, and then we're just going to check the box that says Hide the Latest News Section, and then we'll click on Save and Publish. And then just to show you that we'll view the front end of our site and refresh the page. And now underneath our testimonials section we have our contact form. We no longer have the latest news section. So the next thing we'll do is set up our contact form, and all we need to do is go back to the back end. And of course we'll go to Appearance, Customize, and we'll come down and click on the Contact Us section here. And we're not going to hide this section, so we'll leave this box unchecked. And for the Contact Us section subtitle, we're going to type in, tell us about your travel plans. So I'll type that in, and then I'll scroll down to show you that that is showing up here, right here. And then for the email address, this is where you put in the email address where you want these contact form submissions to be sent to. And I'll just type in my email address, but you would type in the email address where you want these contact forms to be sent to when your users fill them out and submit the contact form. And you can change the button label, which is right here. It currently says send a message, and we'll leave it to that. So we're going to save and publish to save these changes. So now when your users fill out the contact form and click on the send message button, it will send a copy to the email address that you specified. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is create our logo. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the customize screen, and then I'll close out of this tab that we no longer need. And to create our logo, I'm going to open a new tab and go to picmonkey.com. This is another wonderful free resource that you can use to design logos and graphics. Then I'll hover over Design and come down and click on this Custom option. And I'm going to make my canvas 500 pixels by 500 pixels. So I'll type in 500 in both boxes and click on Make It. And I do want to point out, if the PicMonkey app crashes, just refresh the page and it should load fine. I've just noticed that before. And for now, we're going to leave our canvas background color set to white. We will be changing this to a transparent background here in a moment. And we'll also be able to crop our logo down considerably. This is actually a much larger canvas than we need, so we will be able to crop our logo. And then to add our logo text, I'm going to hover over the text tool and click on that. And then I'm going to click on Add Text, and that's going to put a text box in place. Then I can click, hold, and drag the text box up to my upper left area and release. And then I can click on the text box and type in what I want for my logo. And I'm going to type in all caps, Travel Adventure. And then I can click outside of my logo to deselect that. And now I can hover over this edge here, click, hold, and drag that over to make sure that my logo is all on one line. And then with my logo selected, I can come over and choose a font, and I'll scroll down under the sans serif category. I'm going to select Arial Black, and that's going to change my logo there. And with my logo selected, my text selected, I can change the color. What we have here this is called a 6-digit hex code, and this currently is 6 zeros, which represents black. As you can see, our logo is black. If you wanted to change that, you could, with your logo selected, you could hover over and choose a color this way. What we're going to do is actually leave the main logo black. So I'll select the hex code and type in 6 zeros and press enter to change that back. We're going to actually make the first letter of each word a different color. So for my T, I'm going to click here and click, hold, and drag to select just the T. And then what I'm going to do is actually go back to the front end of my site, and I'm going to scroll up towards the top. And for my services, I want to make the travel T in my logo, I want to make it this red color. And then for the adventure A, I want to make it this green color. So what I've got here is a tool that you can download for the Firefox or the Chrome browsers, and it's called Colorzilla. So just go to google.com, type in Colorzilla, and you'll be able to pull up a link. You can click on that and download the Colorzilla tool for your browser. And then to activate the tool, I can go up to Tools and hover over Colorzilla and click on the eyedropper tool, or I can select the eyedropper tool on my toolbar, and that's going to activate it. So now everywhere I hover my cursor, it's going to tell me exactly what that 6-digit hex code is that represents that exact color. So right now I'm hovered over this blue, and you can see at the top I've got next to pound, it says pound 3A B0E2. That's the 6-digit hex code. So to get the 6-digit hex code for this red, I'm going to hover over here, and it looks like I need E96656. So what I'm going to do is go back to the PicMonkey app, and with my T selected, I'm going to come over here and select the hex code that's in place and type in E96656 and press enter, and that's going to change my T to that red shade. And then I'll go back and view my front end and click on the eyedropper tool again, and I'll hover over and get my green shade, and you can see that's going to be pound 34D293. So I'll come back to PicMonkey and click here, and then click and select my A and type in that hex code. Don't type in the pound, just all you need is the 6 digits. So I'll type in 34D293 and press enter. Alright, and now I have my logo created. So I'm going to click in the canvas area here to deselect that. And the next thing I want to do is make my background transparent. So I'm going to come over here, and hover over this icon that says Basic Edits. I'll click on that. And then I'm going to click on my canvas color option. And all I need to do is select this transparent canvas box and then click on Apply. And we want a transparent background for our logo because we want our logo to take on whatever background color we have on our site. Just like when we added our graphics earlier in the video, we wanted transparent backgrounds. And then the next thing I want to do is crop my logo. So with the Basic Edits icon clicked on there, I'm going to select the crop option. And that's going to bring up this crop box. I can click, hold, and drag, and I'll move it up. Just be sure to get all of the text. You don't want to cut anything off. I'll leave it right there, and then I'll grab this bottom corner, click, hold, and drag to revise my selection. And that should be just fine right there. And then I can click on Apply. That's going to crop my logo. And then to save my logo, I'm going to click on this Save button, and I'll give it a title. I'll call it Travel Adventure Logo. And you do need to save this as a PNG for the transparency to be in place there. So we're going to save it as a PNG and click on Save to my computer. And I'll put it in this folder here. Click on Save. And then to add our logo to our site, we're going to go back to our back end and come down, hover over Appearance, and click on Customize. And then we're going to click on General Options and click on General. And then we're going to click on Select Image underneath this logo option. And we do need to click on Upload Files to find this file on our computer. Click on Select Files. And I've got that right here. I'll select that and click on Open. And then I'll click on Choose Image. And then I'm going to go ahead and save and publish the change. And you can see my logo is right there, but if we view the front end also and refresh the page, you can see that we now have our logo showing up here at the top. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is set up our footer, and if we scroll down you can see that we have a place for a physical mailing address, an email address, a phone number, and then we also have these optional social media links. And to set all that up, let's go back to our back end, and I'll back out and exit out of this just to show you. Of course, we'll go to Appearance and click on Customize to access the footer settings. And then we're going to click on General Options just like we did for our logo, and then we can click on General again, and this is where we added our logo just a moment ago. And then we also have this option to include a copyright text. So I'm just going to type in Mock Travel Adventure, and we'll scroll down. This is going to be the text that shows up here in our footer right there. Alright, and then to set up these optional social media links, we can click on the Socials tab here, and you can see there's a pound symbol in place that's acting as just a temporary placeholder. If you wanted to utilize these, all you would need to do is open up a new tab, and you would open up your Facebook page, for example, if you wanted to include the Facebook link. And then so you would find your official business page, then you would copy the URL, and then go back and you would just remove the pound symbol and paste in your new URL there. And we'll do the same thing for Twitter. We'll remove the pound symbol and we'll just go to twitter.com, and you would find your Twitter page. And then once you're on your Twitter page, you would copy the URL and go back and paste that in place there. And then we'll remove the pound symbols for the LinkedIn, Behance, and Dribbble, but you certainly have the option to use those. And before we save this change, you can see at the bottom here we now have the Facebook and Twitter links showing up. And then to set up our addresses and phone number, we need to come over here and click on the footer option. And we do have these graphics in place by default. You could use your own if you wanted to do that, but we're going to leave these in place. And then first we'll set up our email address, and notice that we do have some HTML code here. What this is actually a code to where your email address is going to be a clickable link, so when users click on it, it will open up their mailing application on their computer. So we're going to remove the email address that's in place by default, which is contact@site.com. So just select that and delete it, and be sure not to accidentally delete the quotation mark or the colon. And then we're going to type in our email address. So whatever your email address is, and then we'll type that in again by selecting the default address, and be sure not to accidentally delete one of these greater than or less than symbols. We'll type ours in again. And then we'll scroll down and do something very similar with the phone number. We're going to keep this TEL colon in place, and just starting with a 0, we'll select all of that and remove the phone number in place by default. Be sure not to accidentally delete the quotation mark. Then we'll add our own phone number. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll select the phone number again, add ours. And with this HTML code, our users, if they were using a mobile device, would be able to click on our phone number and dial it that way. Then we'll scroll down, and for our physical address, we'll select the company address in place by default, delete that, and add our own address. And then I'm going to use the less than, BR, and then greater than symbol. This is again the line break HTML code we went over earlier. And that's going to add a line break, so then I'll press enter and add the rest of my address. And then I'll do another line break code, then press enter. And just so you know, even if you were to type your address out and press enter to separate your lines, you still need to have the line break HTML code to have your address on multiple lines. And we're going to go ahead and save and publish. And now when we view the front end of our site, and we're on the footer section, if we refresh the page, notice that we now have all of our information in place. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is set up another page on our site, and so far we spent all of our time setting up this front page here. And you've probably noticed that we have this sample page showing up in our navigation menu. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And that's going to open this page up. And this sample page is a page that comes with a brand new WordPress installation by default. So we're going to go and actually delete this page and create our own page. And we're also going to replace the widgets that come by default with WordPress that you see here. We're going to replace these widgets with our own widget. So let's go back to the back end. And then I'll back out to the main part of my back end. And to access all of our pages, we're going to hover over Pages here on the left, and then click on All Pages. And this is going to bring up a list of all the pages that you have created for your site. And you can see that we only have the sample page created. And to remove this sample page, we're going to hover over it and then click on Trash. And that's actually not going to delete the sample page permanently. It's going to put it in this trash folder here, and we could open up this trash folder and restore that page or delete it permanently from there, but I'll just leave it in the trash folder. And then to add a new page, we're going to go to Pages and click on Add New. And I'll go ahead and dismiss this message here. The first thing you want to do is give your page a title, and I'm going to call this page Detailed Services. So I'll type that in. And then you have the visual editor here, and we also have the text editor. If I click on that, the text editor is what you would use if you actually had HTML code, such as a YouTube video embed code. You could copy and paste that code into the text editor. We're going to be using the visual editor, so I'll switch back over to the visual editor. And the visual editor functions much like a word processor would. If I hover over this icon that says toggle, toolbar toggle, and click on that, it's going to bring up a whole nother row of formatting options. So I can type in text, and I would be able to select the text, and then I have all these formatting options that I can choose from to customize the text. I could make it bold, italic. I could also align the text differently, and I could change the text color. I could make it a heading by selecting from these options. So you can play around with these different options. I could also make it a link by selecting certain text. If I wanted this word to be a link to another page on my site or anywhere on the internet, I could select it and click on this link option, and then I would open up the page that I want it to link to, copy the URL, and paste it in here. But we'll delete this for now, and we're going to add our own content. So I'll remove that, and I'll select where it says heading 1, and I'll change that back to what it was, which was paragraph. And I'm going to add the same content that we added on our front page on the focus section. We're going to start with international travel. So I'll type that in. And then I'm going to select the word, and I'm going to make this a heading 2. That's going to make it bigger and bolder. And then I'll click here at the end and press enter. And that's going to automatically switch back to the paragraph mode. I'm going to copy and paste the blurb that we have. Paste that in, and I'll leave it as a paragraph. And then the next thing I want to do is add the plane icon that we got earlier and that we used on our front page. And I want to add that to the left of my text here. So I always find that it's easier to add your text first and then add the image. So now that we have our text added, I'm going to click to the far left so that my cursor is blinking there. And then I'm going to click on Add Media. And if you haven't already uploaded the image file to your WordPress media library, then you would need to click on Upload Files here and then select that file from your computer. But we have all of our graphics that we're going to use on this page already uploaded, so I'm going to find them in my media library by clicking on this tab, and I'm going to click on my plane icon. And then we'll scroll down, and for alignment, I want this to align left. I want the plane icon to be to the left of my text. And then for the link, I don't want this icon to be a clickable link, so I'm going to select where it says media file and choose none. Now you could choose a custom URL if you wanted the graphic to be a link to another page, and you could paste in the URL to that page here. But we're going to select none. And then for size, I'm just going to select full size for now. You want to select full size, and then we're going to go back and adjust that later on, but we'll select full size, and then click on Insert into Page. Alright, and now let's go ahead and publish this page and view this on our front end. We'll click on Publish. And you always have to publish your pages for the changes to actually save and show up on your front end. So now that we have that, if we go back to our front end, if I refresh this page, since we deleted our sample page, you'll see that it's no longer going to be here. You can see that we get an error, of course, but if I click on my logo to be taken back to the front page, you can see that our site is still definitely functioning properly, and now we have this detailed services appearing in our navigation menu. And the reason we have our new page showing up in our navigation menu is because by default, most WordPress themes, including the Serif theme, will show the pages that you create automatically in your navigation menu unless you set up a custom navigation menu. And of course we are going to set up a custom navigation menu in just a moment, but for now these pages, or this page, is going to appear automatically. So I can click on this page to open it up, and you can see that we have our page title, then we have the heading that we added, our graphic, and our blurb. And I do want to point out this edit button will only show up when you're logged in. It won't show up on anybody else's computer screen, and it won't show up on yours if you were to log out by coming over here and logging out. But it's just a nice little button. We can click on that to be taken back to this screen, or actually this screen here, the page editor. Alright. Now we'll add the rest of our content to our page, so I'll click here at the end of this text and press enter, and then my next heading is going to be luxury cruises, so I'll type that in. And then I'll select the text and make this a heading 2. Then I'll click at the end of the text and press enter, and I will copy and paste in this blurb here. Paste that in, and then I'll click next to the blurb right here, and then I'll click on Add Media to add my icon, and it is going to be in the media library, so I'm going to click on the image that I want, and then alignment is going to stay left, and then link to media file, I'm going to change that to none, and then I am going to make sure that full size is selected there, and then click on Insert into Page. Alright, and then I'll click at the end of that blurb and press enter, and then I'll add my third one, which is going to be bus tours, and I'll copy this blurb here. So I'll type in bus tours, select this text, make it a heading 2, and then click here at the end of that text, press enter, and paste in my blurb, and then click here to add my image, and click on Add Media, and I'm going to find my bus icon, click on that, make sure alignment is set to left, link to, I'm going to change that to none, and then make sure the full size option is selected, click on Insert into Page, and then I'll click at the end of my text, press enter, and then for my last one, it's going to be lodging, and I'll copy and paste this blurb. So I'll type in lodging, and select that, and make this a heading 2. Then I'll click here and press enter and paste my blurb, and then click here at the front of my blurb to add my image, click on Add Media, and I will select my lodging icon, and make sure link to none is selected, and full size is the size I want. Click on Insert into Page. And then I want to make this Hong Kong, I want to make this a link to a Wikipedia page that's about Hong Kong, so I'm going to select it. Sorry to interrupt the flow here, but I want to point out that I did misspell Hong Kong, as you can see here, and I didn't catch this until towards the end of recording this tutorial, so at the end we will go back and fix the spelling error. And then I'm going to click on the chain link icon here, and then I'm going to open up a new tab. I'll close out of these tabs I don't need, and open a new tab, and I'm going to type in Hong Kong, and then I'm going to click on this Wikipedia option here, and then I'm going to copy this link. So I'll select it and copy that. Then I'll go back and I'll paste it in here, and click on Add Link. Okay. And by the way, if you wanted to remove the link, you could select the text that is a link and then click on this Remove Link icon, but we do want to keep this a link, so we'll keep it like that. And now I'm going to update the changes, and this is going to save all the changes. And now when I go back to my front end and refresh the page, notice that we now have all of our icons in place. And the last thing I want to do, you probably can tell the text is not aligned. For example, this text is scooted further closer towards the graphic than these two are. And the reason for that is because the icons are all different widths. We didn't resize them yet. So to make them all the same width, we're going to go back to my page editor, and all we need to do is click on each icon and then click on the pencil button here, and that's going to open up some editing options. And then for the size, we're going to select custom size, and then I'll change the width of all of my icons to 65, and that's going to put in the height automatically. And we're not going to worry about the height. The height can be different, but we want the width to be the same so that our text will align. So we'll click on Update, and then we'll do that for the other three icons. Change the size to custom and select the width and make that 65. Click on Update. We'll do that for the bus. Update that. And then for our lodging, we'll do the same. And update. And now when we update the changes here, by clicking on the Update button, and then go back to the front end and refresh the page, you can see that our text is now aligning here, and also of course our link is in place. And if I click on the Hong Kong text, it's going to take me to the Wikipedia page that we linked it to. But let's go back, and I do want to show you, if we go back to the back end, if you need to access this page editor for your detailed services page, or any page for that matter, of course you would go to Pages and click on All Pages, and that's going to pull up a list of all your pages, and you could just click on the page to open up the page editor, just like that. And then something I want to show you real quick that might be helpful for a handful of people is, if we scroll down, I have enabled the comment settings for this page, and by default they should be disabled, but some of you might have them enabled, and this is what the comment box looks like. And if you want to disable this setting, we're going to go back to the page editor for the page that you want to adjust the setting for, and then we're going to come up to the top and click on the screen options, and then make sure discussion is checked. So you're going to check that, and then we can click screen options to minimize that, and then we can scroll down, and you want to make sure that allow comments is unchecked. So we'll uncheck that there, and we'll click on Update. And now if we view the front end of our site and we're on this page, we'll refresh the page and notice that that took care of the comment settings. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is remove all of the widgets that come with WordPress by default that you see here and add our own widget. And this is the sidebar widget area, and most WordPress themes will come with a sidebar widget area, and of course you can see that the Serif theme does as well. So every other page on your site is going to display whatever widgets you have in your sidebar area, and of course in this tutorial we're going to only add one additional page, but if you have multiple additional pages, then they will automatically show all of the widgets that you have in your sidebar. So to access the sidebar widget area, let's go back to our back end, and of course we're going to go back to Appearance and click on Widgets, and we should have our sidebar widget area showing up here, and you may need to click on the widget area to activate it. And you can see that we have 6 widgets in place by default, and if you notice, we have the search widget, the recent posts, recent comments, etc. If we look at our front end, it's in that same exact order. We have the search widget, the recent posts, recent comments, and then these other 3. So let's go back, and to remove these widgets, of course, like I mentioned earlier, we can open up each widget individually and click on the delete button there, and that's going to remove it. We can also do it more quickly by click holding, dragging, and releasing them back into the available widgets section. So I'll do that with all the rest of these. Alright, And let's go ahead and we're going to add our own widget. You can add any widget that you want to. I'm going to add another testimonial widget, and if I click on my testimonials section, this is the widget area on my front page, I'm going to just basically copy the same testimonial that I had for my first testimonial. So I'm going to add another testimonial widget by finding the widget and clicking on it, and I want to assign it to the sidebar, so I'll check sidebar and click on add widget. And that's going to add the testimonial widget to my sidebar widget area. And then I'll just copy the same information that we have in our other widget. And for the text, I'll just come down and copy the same text that we have. Copy that, and then I'll come in and paste that in here. And then I'll copy the same URL for the image that we have for our testimonial widget. I'll copy that and paste it in up here. And now when I click on save, it's going to save this testimonial widget in my sidebar. And when I review the front end of my site and refresh the page, we now have the testimonial widget showing up, and any other page on your site would automatically show this sidebar widget area, and in our case it would automatically show the testimonial widget that we added. Now, before we create our custom navigation menu up here, we're going to actually go back, and now that we have this page created, we're going to go back to our front page. And if you recall, our focus widgets that we added here, we left the link blank, but I'm going to link all of these to the detailed services page that we created. So to do that, we're going to go back to the back end and go to Appearance, Widgets, and then we're going to minimize all of our widgets here, and we're going to open up our focus section. So I'll minimize these other widget areas by clicking on them. Then I'll open up our focus section by clicking on it. And for the first one, I'll click on it to open up the settings. We'll scroll down. And this is where we're going to add the link. So we're going to link to the detailed services page. And we're going to go back to the front end of our site and open up our detailed services page. And all you need to do is copy the URL and go back to your widget area in your back end. And we're going to paste that in. So I'll just paste that in there. And then I'm going to click on Save. And now when we view the front end of our site and go back to our front page, and I'll scroll down. And now when I hover over, this is the first focus widget that we just added the link to. When I hover over it, I can click on it and be taken to the detailed services page. So I'm going to go back, and we're just going to do the same thing for the other three. We're going to copy the link that we just pasted in here, and we'll add it into each of these. Paste it in and save that. We'll scroll down and open up our third focus widget, paste in that link and save, and do that with our last widget, paste it in and click on Save. So now when we view the front end and the front page, all four of our focus widgets will now link to the detailed services page. Just to demonstrate, I'll click on the last one and you can see right there. Alright, the last thing we're going to do is create a custom navigation menu that's going to show up here at the top. And to do that, let's go back to our back end, and we're going to go to Appearance and click on Menus. And first we need to click on Create a New Menu. So we're going to click on that there. And then we're going to give our menu a title, and I'm just going to call this Main Navigation Menu. So we'll type that in and then click on Create Menu. And then to add a menu item, we're primarily going to be using custom links. So let's come up here to the top, click on Screen Options, and make sure that custom links is checked there. And then click on Screen Options again to minimize that. And then we're going to come down to where it says Custom Links. Click on that. And first we need to give our link a text, and this is just the title that's going to show up on the navigation menu. And for this first custom link, I'm going to link to my home page or my front page. So I'm just going to call this Home. So I'll type that in there. And then for the URL, we need to specify the link destination. So all I need to do is go back to the front end of my site. And since I want to link to my front page, I'm going to open up my front page. And I'm just going to copy the URL here. And then I'll go back to my menu and I'll remove the URL that's in place by default. And make sure you remove everything that's there and then paste in the new URL. And then we need to click on Add to Menu. Alright, and then we need to assign our main navigation menu to a theme location, and different WordPress themes will come with different theme locations, different menu locations. Some themes will come with more than one. In the case of the Zarif theme, we just have the primary menu location, so we need to check that box, and then we're going to click on Save Menu. And now when we view the front end of our site and refresh the page, notice that we now have our main navigation menu showing up with just the one link that we've added so far. And when I click on this, of course, it's going to take me to my front page, which is the page that I'm on already. Alright, let's go back to our back end, and of course under Appearance, Menus, I do want to point out that you can edit your menu items by hovering over them and clicking on the arrow here to drop down the menu item settings, and we could change the URL here if we wanted a different link destination. And by the way, you can link anywhere on the internet. You don't necessarily have to link to another page on your site. And also you could change the navigation label, which is what appears on our front end. It currently says Home, but you could change that by changing that here. And you can also delete a menu item by clicking on Remove, and that would delete it from your menu. But I'm going to go ahead and minimize the menu item settings by clicking there. And the next thing we're going to do is add our detailed services page that we just created to our menu, and it should be appearing here under this Pages option. But do go to Screen Options at the top right and make sure that Pages is checked there, and then we can minimize the screen options. And then your pages, if you clicked on View All, it would show all of your pages. We just have the Detailed Services page, but if you had multiple pages, they should be appearing in this section here. And then to add the Detailed Services page to our menu, we're going to check the box and click on Add to Menu. And that's going to put it at the bottom by default. And by the way, I want to point out you can rearrange your menu items by click holding, dragging, and releasing, and that would put the Detailed Services menu item on top. If I save the menu and then view the front end and refresh, you'll see the Detailed Services menu item will appear in front of the home. But we're going to go back and rearrange that the way we had it. And I do want to point out this, if you indent your menu item and release it like that, that's actually going to be a drop-down menu, and we'll click on Save, and Detailed Services will appear as a drop-down when you hover over Home if we were to leave it like that. So when we view the front end and refresh the page, and now we can hover over Home and we have the Detailed Services page, and we can click on that, of course, to be taken to that actual page. Alright, let's go back to our back end, and of course under Appearance, Menus, I'm going to click, hold, and drag Detailed Services back over and release, and that way the Detailed Services menu item is no longer going to be a drop-down. And then the next thing we're going to do, let's view the front end of our site and click on the logo to be taken to the home page. The Zarif theme is designed to where the different sections on our home page, the Focus section here with our services, the About section, the team member section, and these other sections, the way it's designed, the sections have section IDs, and we can use those IDs to create a navigation menu that allows us to link to each of the sections. So instead of just going to the page, the home page, which would put us right here at the top of the home page, we can link to the different sections of our home page. So to set that up, we're going to go back to the back end, to our menu, and then I'm going to click on Custom Links here. And the first one I'm going to do is the Our Services section, which is right underneath the title of our site. So I'm going to type in Our Services, because that's what I want the menu item to say. And then for the URL, what we need to do is copy the link to the page, which is going to be our home page. So I'm going to copy the URL here, and then go in and we'll paste that in. And then to utilize the section ID, I'm going to type in the pound symbol. And then the section ID for the Our Focus section is simply Focus. So I'll type that in, and then I need to click on Add to Menu. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing for the next section, which is going to be my About section. So for the link text, I'm going to call it About Us. I'll type that in. Then I'll remove the URL that's there, and I'll paste in the URL to our home page, and then I'm going to type in pound. And the section ID for the About section is About Us, all one word. And then I'll click on Add to Menu. And then I'll do the Our Team section, and I'll just say Our Team, type that in. And then I'll remove the URL that's there and paste in the URL for our home page, then type in pound. And the section ID is simply Team, I'll type that in, click on Add to Menu. And the next one I'll do is the testimonials section. So for the link text, I'll just type in testimonials. And I'll remove the URL in place and paste in the homepage URL and type in pound, and just testimonials is the section ID. So I'll type that in and click on Add to Menu. And we aren't using the blog feature, but if you wanted to link to your latest news section, if you were utilizing the blogging feature, then you could type in whatever you want for the link text. You could type in our latest news or blog or whatever you want, and then you would just paste in the URL for the home page, and you would type in pound latest news, and that would be one word. But we're not going to use that, so the next section we'll do is our contact section. So I'll type in contact us for the link text, and then for the URL, I'll remove what's there, paste in the URL for my home page, type in pound, and the section ID is contact. And then I'll click on Add to Menu. And then I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to move Detailed Services, and I'm going to make it a drop down under Our Services. So I'll click, hold, and drag Detailed Services, and then move it under Our Services, and then I can indent it. And let's go ahead and save the menu that we have here. Then we'll view the front end of our site, and let's refresh the page. And we now have all of these other menu items here. When I hover over Our Services, we get the Detailed Services link. But just to show you, if I click on Our Services here, it's going to take me on our front page to the Our Services section, which is the Focus section. And then I can click on the About Us to be taken to the About section. I can click on Our Team. I can click on Testimonials, and I can click on Contact Us. And of course, I can click on Home to be taken to the top of the home page, just like that. And to show you, if we go to the Detailed Services page, it still works from here. I can click on the About Us, and that'll take me to my front page to the About section. And real quick, I do want to show you that you can have multiple menu items as a drop down. And just to show you, we'll go back to the back end, and of course under Appearance, Menus. Let's say I wanted to have the About Us underneath as a drop down under Our Services and Our Team. We could indent them just like that, and then let's say I wanted Our Team to be the first menu item. I could click, hold, and drag just like that, so that when I hovered over Our Services, I get these three menu items in this order. And just to show you, we can save the menu. And if we view the front end and refresh the page, now we can hover over Our Services, and we have all three of these options, and they work just the same. I could click on Our Team, and that would take me to the team member section on my front page. But of course, I want to go back and reset it the way that it was. So I'll just do that real quickly here. I'll move Our Team down under here, and then I'll no longer indent the About Us menu item, just like that, and save the menu. And go back to the front end of our site and refresh the page. And we have it back the way that it was. Alright, now that you have an understanding of how to use section IDs to link to different parts of the front page, we're going to come up here to the top, and I need to change the link destination for our two buttons here. For the Our Services button, of course, I want to link to my Focus section here, and for the Contact button, I'm going to link to the contact form on the bottom of my front page. So to do that, let's go back to the back end, and we're going to go back to Appearance and click on Customize. And then we're going to click on the Big Title section, and we'll scroll down. And for the red button link, I'm going to triple click on that to select everything that's there, and then press the Delete key, and make sure you remove all of the text that's there. And then to link to the Our Focus section, we're going to go back to the front end, and we're going to copy the URL for our front page. So we'll copy that and go back, and we're going to paste that in. And then to link to the specific Focus section, we're going to type in pound and type in Focus, just like that. And then for the green button, we'll select the URL that's in place and remove it and paste in our front page URL. And then I'll type in pound, and I'll type in the section ID for the contact form, which is contact. And now when we save and publish, and we can view the front end of our site and refresh the page. Now I can click on these buttons to be taken to the different sections on our front page. And just to show you, I can click on the Contact button to be taken to the contact form. Alright, and then the very last thing we're going to do is fix the Hong Kong spelling errors that I pointed out earlier in the video. And if we click on the Our Services menu item, you can see, of course, we have the Hong Kong spelling error here. And if we go to our Detailed Services page, we have the same spelling error on our link here. So first we'll fix the spelling error on our page. Let's go back to the back end and we'll go to Pages, click on All Pages. And then we'll click on our Detailed Services page to open that up in the page editor. Then I'll scroll down and I'll just click right where the error is and press the delete key and then type in the correct G that I want there. And then I'll click on Update. And now if we view the front end of our site and our Detailed Services page and refresh, you can see that we have corrected the error there. And then to correct the error on our home page, we will go back to the back end and we're going to go to Appearance, Widgets, since this is a widget that we need to correct. And then we're going to click on the Our Focus section widget area to open that up, and it's going to be the third focus widget, so I'll click on that to open up the settings. And then I'll click where the error is and press the delete key and replace it with a G. And then I'll scroll down and click on Save, and then we'll view the front end of our site and refresh the page. And you can see that we now have the error corrected. Alright, that concludes this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and if you did find the video helpful, please don't forget to like the video on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, comment on the video, and add the video as a favorite, and also share the video on YouTube. These things really help me out, and I really appreciate that. Also, if you do need hosting, go to HostGator.com, and you can either use the WP Sculptor 1 cent coupon code or the WP Sculptor 25 coupon code, and not only will you get an additional discount, that also really helps support me, so thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you next time.